Alright, this is my ESP LTD guitar that a friend of mine gave me. It's not a very expensive guitar, but it does sound pretty good. It does play very well. Really have not done too many modifications other than putting a roller bridge on it. But where I have the camera pointed at is the main problem with this guitar. The switch here will fail in all positions. Now notice how I switched it. Sounds pretty solid, stays in place on both settings, and when you flip it back, it's got enough spring pressure to kind of like go back on its own. Some switches, when they're starting to fail or if they wear out, they don't have this locking. It's kind of like real easy to push it back, or it'll even move on its own. It won't stay switch into position that you want to put in. This one doesn't have that problem, but it's failing. I can switch it to the neck pickup and it either works or it doesn't work. Flip it in the middle position, 9 times out of 10 it works, but it occasionally fails. Switch it to the bridge and it does the same thing as the neck position does. Either sounds real dim or it fails completely. So that's telling me that the switch itself on the inside is causing problems. I'm going to show you a little way of fixing it without having to replace the switch, so stay tuned. Alright, so here we have the toggle switch from the ESP guitar, and one way to tell that your switch is fucking up or failing or whatever, yeah, a good way to tell. Look at that ball, the plastic white ball that's on the inside of there. See if I can get this to focus a little bit better. That's much better. That white plastic ball that's on the side there, if you can see wear marks on the edges of where it rubs these metal tabs, it's a good sign that, you know, it's pretty worn, needs to be replaced. Sometimes it will not stay switched in the position that you switch it in because of that, or you know, may not be making a connection the way that you need it to make. Right now, this switch looks good. Doesn't look like it's in bad shape at all. That white plastic piece on the edges is not rounded over or angled in any way, and it is flipping the switch, opening this circuit here and closing this side here, so it's working properly. Now you can do this without removing the switch from the body of the guitar, the wiring. Just make sure when you put this back together none of these wires came loose or came off, came apart, or anything else. I'm going to try to do this where I can hold the camera. There's my little tripod for holding the camera. So before I get into any more, let me get something to hold this camera so I can have two hands. Alright, so hopefully you can see this with no problems. And yes, I am smoking right now, so if you do see some cigarette smoke, I am smoking. So what I got here, simple three-way switch. Les Paul has it, ESP's got it, Epiphone's got it. A lot of people use them, not a big deal. And this is probably not even a Switchcraft switch. It's probably just a no-name switch that ESP threw in with their guitar. Now there's a couple ways you could do this. Get a little bit of something to drink. If your switch is switching pretty damn good, left to right, holding, staying, not changing, not going back on its own, needs a little bit of force to kind of get it back into the middle position. That's two things you got going for you. Number one, your little plastic ball that's on the inside is not worn, and there is enough tension on the terminals, which act as a spring, to hold it in position and to go back to position to make a connection. Now these are making a connection. I can't even get a real thin piece of paper inside of there to basically see if they are touching or not. Now you could take this apart, and what I call a breadboard for, like, computer bit breadboards for projects and shit like that, is basically what these plates are. And you have the terminals that are sandwiched into these plates. I do not have to take this apart. It's pretty simple. It's 2 screws. This back plate here that looks like a link to a chain is basically your nut that the screws go into. You want to make sure either you write down, take pictures or something of how this goes back together, because if you put it back together wrong, you're going to have a problem. And on one of these switches that I ended up doing, I had a problem where there is a sleeve that runs inside of here, and that sleeve was making the terminals touch, because it's all metal, was making these terminals touch each other, basically, canceling out, trying to switch it over. So what I ended up doing is, when I pulled the screw out, I put some heat shrinking tubing on the screw, a little bit longer than this whole assembly is, and that stopped it from grounding itself out or whatever, and making connections for all the switches. That way this would actually go into section and do what it's supposed to do. Now, how do you fix this problem? Okay, shit, dirt, whatever can get inside her. You see that little tiny bump right there that's inside there? That's where it's making its connection. Sometimes dirt or something gets on there. Now, if this was electrical circuit where there was power running over there, that would arc every time you switch it on, switch it off. You get a little arc, so there'll be a little bit of a discoloration, a little bit of char in there. But since this doesn't do that, doesn't have any major power going into it, you're not going to get an arcing inside there. Sorry, I paused the camera so I could finish my cigarette that was burning in the ashtray. Now, a way to fix this, to get this to work, because there is a build-up every time you open and close that switch. It does build up a little bit of shit on there. You might get the 2 pieces of metal rubbing together, it may cause some dirt. Anything is possible, okay? So, a can of deoxit could fix it. Pretty simple. No problems, but I've tried that already with this, and it really didn't do too much. So the next option is a piece of 800 grit sandpaper, or a little tiny emery board or something. Now, you don't have much space to work with inside there, okay, without taking this all apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrow this sandpaper down to basically a small strip. Just like this. I'm going to fold that strip so it has sandpaper on both sides. Now, this might be a little bit too wide, so I'm going to have to get the scissors and cut this down. Scissors. Gotta tighten them up because they're starting to come loose a little bit. Been using them for a bunch of different shit. And I'm going to trim down each side of this piece of sandpaper. Try to do this in a way where I'll have paper on both sides and not cut one side off too much. Alright, that worked out pretty good. Now to do the other side. And you want to use a clean piece of paper. Alright. So there you go. Narrowed it down to a small strip with paper on both sides. This is an easy fix, guys. You can do this yourself. If this does not fix your problem, then I would say, well, maybe it is time for a switch replacement. But this is a way to kind of save you money. So what I end up doing, get my hand in there, open the switch. Put the piece of sandpaper, I can't see what using the camera. Put the piece of paper inside of between the 2 pieces of metal, right over that bump. Close the switch, so now that the paper is sandwiched between the 2 terminals and where they make a connection, take that piece of paper and just pull it out. Not real hard, not real fast, but just slide it out, just like that. As you can see on the paper, you see where it's scratched on that side. And you can see where it kind of made a mark on that side. Not very much, but it made a mark. Open the switch again. Slide your piece of paper inside there. Make sure it's on top of the terminals where the two meet. Close your switch. Slide it again. You shouldn't have to do more than 2 times to clean it. Now go on to the other side of the switch. Close the switch. Pull the paper out. And that time I only got pretty much close to the edge, but it did feel like the paper was grabbing. And I could feel that there's a lot of tension between the two pieces of metal. So it's not worn, so to say. Slide it out again. And you can kind of see where it's been rubbing on the paper. Not that big of a deal. Kind of see where it's been rubbing on the paper. Take your can of compressed air. Open each side of the switch. Blow it clean. Open the other side of the switch. Blow it clean. Now, what I'm going to do, a little bit of deoxit that has the lubricant in it. And if you look at the can of deoxit, okay, let's see if I can get that in the picture. You see you have low, medium, and high. Put it on low. You don't need much. Get something to drink again. Just one little tiny small squirt between the open terminal. So it gets a little bit on there. Close it. Open the other side. A little small little dab on that. Switch it back and forth. Now the bad thing about deoxit and using some type of a cleaner on pots, using some type of cleaner on switches, is because of the lubricant, it can attract dust. It can attract dirt. So if you have any particles that are inside of your cavity of your guitar and they move around, it can get in your switch, and because it's an oil, it can stick to the switch or slide. So basically what I'm going to do is just kind of switch it back and forth. Now I know what this did before, and I know how it was working before, and I know how shitty it was trying to use it. So you don't have to take this out of circuit to do this next test, which is going to be with a multimeter. And the multimeter I'm going to set for continuity. So right there is my multimeter. If I touch 2 pins together, you get a beep. That lets you know that you are making continuity. So right now, if I were to tap the 3 that are on the front of this, the 3 terminals, if I were to tap these 3 terminals together, say if I want to go on the left side or the right side of the switch, get my wire over here, so it's making it a little bit difficult to do this, I should have noise. I should have some type of sound coming from the multimeter. Alright. So I have continuity from both sides of this switch, which means that both pickups would be working. So if I flip this switch over to one side, I should be making continuity on the side that is closed right now, which would be this side. And no sound from this side. No sound on that side, sound on that side. Alright, so if I go to the other side of the switch, I should have no sound on this side, but I should have sound on that side. Sorry about the lighting if it's kind of shitty. Sound. No sound. So that's telling me and just fix the fucking problem. So instead of going out and spending the money for a new switch, unless you see physical wear on the old switch, like I said, that ball, that white ball that's inside of there, and it's not wanting to stay switched, it wants to keep on like flipping itself like this, and there's really not much pressure on the switch every time you switch it back and forth, then I would say, yeah, replace the switch. But otherwise, you could fix this yourself. It is not that big of a deal. And you can do it in circuit without having to remove it, just like I did. Just protect your body of your guitar so you're not scratching it. And in this case here, I had to remove a wire tie, this little wire tie right here, in order to unbundle to have some extra wire. Now, a lot of guitars, some guitars will be so fucking tight where they don't give you any wire at all. You may have to remove the switch from the circuit to do this. And again, you don't have to take the switch apart. You could go the same route that I went with the very fine, very thin piece of sandpaper, and it works like a charm. It's thin enough. It's not like a piece of thick emery board, so you won't be keeping those two pieces from apart from each other, and you're not going to bend the spring, because that's what these pieces are. These terminals are acting like as a spring as well, from stopping the connection if you would try to use something bigger than a piece of paper. That's it, folks. How to repair a switch that's broken. Pretty simple. And while you have the guitar open, wouldn't be too bad of an idea to maybe hit the volume and the tone control with a little bit of deoxit as well. So this thing here should make noise now, or myself, the one who can't play guitar worth a shit, make noise, make the guitar make noise. So that's it, folks. Easy fix, not a big deal. You can do it yourself. Don't have to spend, I don't know how much a fucking switch is through all parts for something like this. It's been a while since I had to buy one. And basically fix it yourself. Now, I know I'm repeating myself, but like I said before, unless you see a lot of wear on that ball on the inside and there's not that much spring in it anymore to where it's not holding its own and wants to switch back to the center position, if it's doing that to you, yeah, it's fucked. Replace it. If not, try this route. Pretty simple, pretty easy. You can do it yourself. Well, here's something I haven't used in a long time, and that is my old Line 6 amplifier. Oh, fuck. So, with the pickups in middle position, let's hear what it does. Shit, something's wrong. What the fuck? Oh, I fucked that up. God damn it. No, the volume is fucking turned off. Works fine now. So I'm in the neck position. Neck position. Both pickups. Now I'm in bridge. So let's do a little trick here. I'm gonna just do what I just did. Have it ring out. Flip the switch. No cutting out at all. Easy fucking fix. Like I said, anyone can do it. But this is the guitar that I was referring to as having a bad switch. Not the Gibson. The Gibson just so happened to have it failed. That's all I can say. This one here had a bad switch on it. None of the fucking settings worked. Center, up, down, left, right, round circle, you name it, whatever direction, it wasn't working. So now it's fine. Yes, I suck at playing guitar, we all know this. So anyways, the way to fix the switch, if it is not worn out to the point where that plastic ball on the inside is angled or cut funny or worn funny, so that's about it. Now I'm going to go back to real life and get some other shit done. Later, guys. Oh, and by the way, the keyboard hero that keeps wanting to send me messages and stuff that I've kind of blocked several times, and it seems like the same person coming back under different names, that mentioned about a comment that was made in a recent hangout about Ed Dana and that guitar that I sent him, the Harley Benton. And it was something said that Ed was talking shit about me and talking shit about the trem that was on that Harley Benton guitar. Now, when I sent him that Harley Benton guitar, I kind of like, I don't know if you call it docking or whatever it's called. When I sent him that guitar, I set the trem up so it was on top of the body of the guitar. And he plays them a little bit differently, so he had to reset the trem on that guitar for the way that he plays. Now, there was no big surprise in that comment because after I gave him that guitar in a, I don't know if it was a private hangout or whatever hangout it was, that when we were all getting together and shooting the shit about things that were interesting and more fun than the way things are now, he told me about it. So that was really not a big surprise to find out. So the keyboard hero that's kind of like trying to stir up shit or whatever is going on, number one, I was actually in the comment section or the chat section of that hangout, so I did see what was said, and I also mentioned that I was already told about this, so it's nothing new. Give it up, whatever. It's getting old. So she's fixed.